Hey everybody, this is Jason here, West Volusia CPR LLC and westvolusiacpr.com, coming to you today with a short video on what the critical skills and components are of performing high quality CPR. Let's be real, we've all been there, we've done that, we've got the t-shirt, but every day I still hear and see what individual thoughts are on what high quality CPR really is. Today, we're here to change all of that. First, high quality CPR comes down to these following things: proper hand placement, proper depth with full recoil, proper rate, and proper number of compressions. So why don't we take a look at what the American Heart Association has to say in its guidelines as far as these critical concepts are concerned. So what we have here is we have the American Heart Association's summary of high quality CPR table that we provide to every single one of our clients who attend a class here with us, because we believe that it's very important to make sure that everybody has all the information they can possibly have in one simple, consolidated, easy to use document. So why don't we just go ahead and scroll on down here to the lower half, and we're going to get in here and see just how important compressions are given the amount of information there is. First and foremost, we need to start with hand placement. For the adult victim, we will use two hands on the lower half of the chest of the breastbone. For the child, we will use two hands or one hand on the lower half of the chest bone. And for infants, we're going to use either two fingers or we're going to use two thumbs encircling technique, but again, on the lower half of the breastbone. Every victim gets placement on the lower half of the breastbone. Now we go to compression depth. Here at West Volusia CPR, we like to say compression depths is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Adults, at least 2 inches deep. Children and infants, 1/3 the depth of the chest, and that's how deep you have to compress. 1, 2, 3. 2 inches, 1/3. All right? But just as important is that chest recoil. For every single last person, allow complete and full recoil between your compressions. Why? Well, this is important for a couple of reasons, and my advanced providers are going to understand this concept. It all comes down to preload. The more that you allow the chest to recoil, okay, the more that you allow that heart muscle to relax and to fill. Anyone who knows cardiac, especially if you're a cardiac geek like me, will remember the Frank-Starling association curve. The greater the stretch, the greater the squeeze. However, complete recoil doesn't just provide the opportunity for the heart to refill with blood, which maximizes the effectiveness of every subsequent compression and therefore perfusing the brain better. I said geek, right? It also allows for more time between your compressions for blood to actually flow through the coronary arteries and feed the heart muscle. Thus, it nourishes the heart better by delivering essential oxygen, glucose, and electrolytes to the tissue, which helps to restore a healthier chemical environment. This in turn helps to make your defibrillation temps with your AED or manual defibrillator more effective, because you're helping the heart muscle to ensure that it has what it needs to adequately squeeze once a normal rhythm is restored. Compression speed. 100 to 120 compressions per minute, la-di-da-di everybody. Nobody gets a pass here. Every victim gets compressions at 100 to 120 per minute. Why is this? Once again, it comes down to that magical word called preload. How much are we filling the ventricle? If I'm compressing the chest at a rate less than 100 compressions per minute, there is no way that I'm generating enough of a perfusion pressure on a consistent basis in order to maintain adequate perfusion to the brain and to the aortic root, which is where the coronary arteries that feed the heart muscle originate. Secondly, if I'm going faster than 120 compressions per minute, then I am not allowing the ventricle enough time to re-expand. Usually because I'm massaging the heart and not coming up all the way. But even if I was, I'm not giving the heart a chance to come up before that breastbone is coming back down. All right? Now we have the compression to ventilation ratio. The American Heart Association guidelines say that for 1 or 2 rescuer adult, it is always 30 to 2. What's an adult victim? Any victim of the ages 8 or older, or is pubescent or post-pubescent. And this 30 to 2 ratio is, listen carefully, if breaths are being administered. For all other victims, As a single rescuer, we maintain the 30-to-2 ratio if breaths are being administered. And once we have 2 or more rescuers, we go 15-to-2 if breaths are being administered. Why the reason for a switch to 15-to-2? Well, because infants and children are more likely to have a cardiac arrest that is as a result of a lack of adequate oxygen. And because of the damage to the brain leading to the cardiac arrest, because of that lack of oxygen, we want to go ahead and support them as best we can, as soon as we can, which is in a team event. Okay? So now that we've had all that discussion, one of the most important things I like to ask is, well, what makes 2 minutes? A little bit of a history here. For those of us familiar with the American Heart Association, since 2005, they've required a compression to ventilation ratio of 30-to-2 times 5 cycles to make approximately 2 minutes. However, that hasn't always been the case. I have some links to a couple of pages that I'm going to put here at the end of this presentation for those interested in the history of CPR and the recent history that American Heart Association guidelines changes have had happen. But I really wanted to show you this chart that I found, which summarizes all of the CPR compressions oriented changes in one neat format. As you can see, it hasn't always been a 30-to-2 ratio for our compression and ventilations. Back in 2000, from 2000 to 2004, it was actually 15-to-2. To add even more confusion to the mix, American Heart Association began its hands-only campaign back in 2008 when the compression rate was approximately 100 compressions per minute. What is the hands-only campaign? It states that if you do not have a breathing device or you are an untrained bystander, simply pump the chest at the prescribed rate for 2 minutes. Okay? So, what makes 2 minutes? Well, let's use a little bit of math to get that answer. At a compression rate of 100 compressions per minute, 30 compressions will take about 18 seconds to complete. Then you're allowed to take up to 10 seconds in order to provide 2 breaths. That's 28 seconds for a 30-to-2 ratio cycle. And we're to perform 2 minutes, which is 120 seconds. So divide 120 by 28 and you actually get just over 4 cycles at a 32 rate at a compression rate of 100 per minute. Well, let's go to our current standards, which updated in 2015 of 100 to 120. Now it takes 15 to 18 seconds to do 30 compressions. So if I'm doing compressions at 120 per minute, which is the fastest I'm allowed, that takes 15 seconds. Then add 10 seconds for my breaths, and now I'm to 25 seconds per 30-to-2 cycle. 25, 50, 75, 100, 125 seconds is 2 minutes, 5 seconds. That's why it's 5 cycles, but we like to say 30-to-2 equals 5. Keep it simple, right? But you know what? There's more to it than even that. Let's say I don't have a barrier device. Now I'm not going to give breaths, especially to someone whose medical history I don't know or someone whose medical history I do know and it's not safe to do so. Now I'm going to no longer perform cycles of 30-to-2 because the breaths have been removed. So now I am just doing continuous compressions at a rate of 100 to 120 per minute. How many is going to make 2 minutes? Do you hear the crickets? If you answer 200 to 240 compressions makes 2 minutes, congratulations. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. The problem is this information isn't shared within the American Heart Association materials. I haven't found it online. I haven't found it in a provider manual. I haven't found it in a card. But we here at West Volusia CPR teach that because we want to make sure that every single person is prepared not just to come here and get a card, not just to come here and get certified. We know you're here because you have a job, because you have school, we get it. But we also want you to be out there prepared when you're in the field if the worst was to happen to anyone, especially a family or a friend. So, to conclude, high quality chest compressions are determined by proper compression point on the chest, lower half of the breastbone. Correct depth, 2 inches for the adult, 1/3 the depth of the chest for everybody else. The correct rate, which is 100 to 120 compressions per minute, keeping your interruptions in chest compressions to less than 10 seconds, and, depending on whether you're giving breaths, the proper compression to ventilation ratio. 30-to-2 for the adults always, 30 to 2 for infants and children when you're by yourself, or 15 to 2 when you have a second rescuer. And if you're not giving breaths, 200 to 240 compressions only make 2 minutes, or 5 cycles of 30 to 2 make 2 minutes. Remember, 2 minutes at a time. Then reassess your victim for pulse and breathing for no more than 10 seconds and get back on the chest if they're dead. And if you have a bystander, you better make sure you switch. So, that being said, I hope this video was helpful and helped to shed some light and clarity on what high quality CPR is. And now I hope you understand a little bit more of why you do what you do when it comes to resuscitation. So for more videos like this and more information on courses we offer, please feel free to visit our website, www.westvolusiacpr.com. Also, don't forget to check out us on social media, on our Facebook page and on Twitter. And as always, if you have any questions, any suggestions, any comments, feel free to email us at admin@westvolusiacpr.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Have a great one.